Welcome back to part 3 of the Simply Hosted Plus training series. In the first series, we looked at user creation. From there, we talked about how to send emails, how to log in as your reseller, how to access your client. In part 2, we looked at ring groups, queues, system recordings, or digital IVRs. Today, we are going to look, in this series, we're going to take a look at time conditions, business hours, holidays. We're also going to look at what was called call flow control. That is the same feature as here. It's a little bit different in terms of name, but the idea is the exact same. Then we're going to look at how to actually put these into a DID. And then from there, I also want to show you how a user can change these from their call panel. So let's start first with a call flow control. Call flow control is quite simple to program if you remember from the Simply Hosted. In this system, it's referred to as a toggle destination. So instead of call flow control, it's called the toggle destination. It's at the bottom here. If we click on it, you can see we already have a couple. Once again, the nice thing about it is it shows you your two options, but it also shows you which one is active. So in this case, for closing early, we have destination A is red, so that means that's not the active one, that's disabled. This option B is enabled. This is where calls are going to be going. And for the second option, day-night, the day reception is active, whereas the night reception is not active. So you can kind of see some information here, and if you want to access it, simply highlight it and hit edit. Well, let's add one. So if we want to call this holiday, if you want to have a holiday call flow control, remember call flow controls or a toggle, once you set it, it stays there until you toggle it back. So you create a button and you give it a value, and I'm going to show you what that value is in just a second. So you give it a name, and then you pick your two destinations, and it just toggles between the two of those. So destination A could be an announcement for day, night. I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm just kind of showing you what you can do here. Option B can be a voicemail box. And you can put an announcement with it if you'd like, but you don't have to. This is what is played. The announcement is what is played when you toggle there. Otherwise, it should kind of give you some default toggle answer. So if you hit save, so now you have your setup here. Now, if you want to create a button, you can see you have an ID right here. So 6, 3, and 21. And at the top, you can see here's the code. So to create a call flow control for the toggle, you'd make it a BLF, and then it'd be *44 *6, or *44 *3, or *44 *21. So *44 and then whatever the ID is. And the ID is just chosen for you when you initially create it. It's not even something you can go in here and change. So pretty straightforward. Once again, it's going to stay there until you toggle it off. And then you use this code right here for your BLF, *44 and then the ID number. Okay, that's your call flow control. In this case, it's called toggled destinations. The second is time conditions. It's right above it, so the name is the same. The time conditions is a little bit different. It combines both the time conditions and the time groups into a single location. So you're used to seeing them separately. Here it's all built into one. So if we click on time conditions, you can see we already have one. Let's go ahead and add one. So first thing, you want to give it a name. So let's just call it, we'll call it holiday. Okay, and then it's the same idea. You set a match and a not match, a true and a false, and then you choose times that go along with it. So if it matches, if it's a holiday, then you want to go to a ring group. If it's not a holiday, then you want to go to a different time condition. You want to check your business hours. Are you open or are you closed? You can set your time zone. If you don't set it, it's just going to factor in the time zone of the system. So you don't necessarily have to set a time zone here. So you set your two locations. This is the same as you had for time conditions before. Does it match or does it not match? For business hours, it's going to be, your open IVR. If it doesn't match, it's going to be your closed IVR. And then here you click on planning. So this is where you set various holidays or ranges. So for holidays, you typically do a range. So you could do, let me go ahead and add one here. So if we want, so in this case we would be, so January 1 ending January 2, so that would be January 1 and January 2 would be a holiday. That would be a match. So you can add in here all of your holidays for this season. Right? So March 1. So now you're closed from March 1 to March 12, sort of a thing, and you can apply it. If you don't want to do a date range, right, so if we want to go ahead and cancel this, get rid of this, remove it, you can do a condition here. So you do Monday, so 0800 to 1700. Oops. 08 17. Okay. And then you could choose your, so Tuesday maybe you're open at 9. And then you close at 17 again. So here's where you would set your, typical business weekdays. In this case, we're doing a holiday, so it doesn't quite make sense, but I'm just kind of showing you how to do a time condition. So this is like the time group portion of your time condition. So anything that falls in between these would be a match. So anything from 8 to 17 would be a match, and it would go to your true destination. If it was outside of that, it would go to your false destination. And you can put a break in here. Some people like to have, a lunch break. So if you come back in here and do 12 to 1, actually you'd want to do 13. All right, so now what this is going to be is this is going to play your day greeting from 8 to 12. It's going to play your night greeting from 12 to 1, and then back to your day greeting from 13 to 17. Some people will do that. That plays the same night greeting as your lunch break, although in this case we're doing holidays, so it doesn't quite make sense exactly. But you get the idea of how we do time conditions and time groups. So you can either do it by dates at the bottom or by days of the week on top. And once you're done, you simply hit apply, and then there's your time condition. So once you've set this up, either your call flow controls or your time groups, then you would go to your inbound route, which in this case is just a DID. So if you scroll back up and click on your DIDs, this is going to automatically populate with the DIDs in your system. You are not going to need to create any inbound routes. So if you want to change one, you highlight it, hit edit. Here's where you can change the name. Do not change the number. That's already set for you. If you want to change the prefix, you can change that here. Now here's your destination. So if we want this to go to a toggle destination, or we want this to go to holiday, this is like going to your inbound route and choosing your destination. It's kind of like saying, okay, this is the first thing you should look at. Either it's a call flow control or it's a time condition, and then it kind of follows the pattern from there. But this is where you set your inbound routes, to use a terminology that you guys are used to. So if we hit apply, now it's done. So now if you were to call this phone number, it would first look at this toggle, and then it would follow the path of the call all the way through. I didn't actually track the entire path, but if you're doing it correctly, you'll probably do a call flow control and a time condition, then another time condition, and then eventually that would stop there. So that's how you would do your time conditions, your call flow controls, which in this case are called toggle destinations or toggle destinations, and then your DIDs. Your DIDs are your inbound routes. Now I want to show you how a user, there's a nice easy way for a user to be able to change these. So let me log into, so let's go to I'm going to go to Users, and I'm going to log in as an extension, and I want to show you how a user can change these from the call panel. Alright, so let's go ahead, we'll click here, and we'll do Connect as User. Okay. So if you go over here, first thing if you look in announcements, so this is going to be this new category on the top now. So if you give them access, the user can see the announcements, or the other, what we're used to saying as the system recordings. So a user can access like their holiday message, for example, or their day message or their night message, and they can change it. Right? If they want to do a text-to-speech, they can. If they want to change their holiday message, they can. So the user is going to be able to, if you give them permission, is going to be able to see the system recordings in the call panel and then type up a new one. So what I think especially helpful is if you were, using a holiday. You wouldn't do this normally, but say you gave them access to the holiday announcement, the holiday system recording. They could come in here whenever they wanted, instead of having to remember some feature code on the phone and do it via their desk phone. They could do it from their computer. They could say CQ So they could go in here and change the holiday recording and update it here. So that is helpful for the user to be able to do that. And that's a permission-based thing within the call, within the programming, and we'll get into a little different programming section. The other thing they can do, if you give them permission, is if they go to their settings, right? So they log into the call panel and they go to their settings and they scroll down. You can see they've got the toggle destinations here. So they can actually toggle their call flow control from the call panel. They don't necessarily have to have a button on their phone, which is nice because if they're working from home or if they're just using their computer, they don't have a desk phone, or they need to be able to toggle it from home, for example. They can't get into their phone. No one's going to remember that feature code. They can toggle any of their call flow controls from their call panel, and that's going to be in their settings and at the bottom here for toggle destinations. So the call panel allows them to change system recordings if you give them permission, and it's going to allow them to do call flow control toggles if you give them permissions as well. This concludes part 3 of our training for SimpyHosted Plus.